Hello and welcome to our live stream slash webinar. We really appreciate you joining us wherever you are today. This is Email Deliverability 101. My name's Michael Sharkey. I'm joined here by Travis, who's our head of email deliverability. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you. So excited.
Been really excited to do this event for quite a while. Travis and I have been talking about doing a session of talking you through everything we know about email deliverability. Travis is obviously responsible for sending billions of emails, so he's more than experienced to talk us through this today. And so we're going to get straight into it. As I said, we are streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Livestorm here for many of you. And so if you do have questions, please prop them in the chat and we'll try and get to them either throughout the presentation today or we'll make some time at the end if there's a lot of questions. The runtime for today's event is 45 minutes. If you do want a recording, we'll give you a link at the end if you are tuned in on LinkedIn or YouTube and you haven't actually registered for the event, you've just found it by chance. So at the end, we'll give you a link. If you stick around, you can pop your details into that and we'll send you a recording of it and some other tips and tricks from Travis. So you'll have various chat boxes and question boxes on the side. I don't know what they look like, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. So pop them in there and we'll do our best to get to them throughout the event today. So what we're covering today is Travis is going to give us a rundown of a history of email deliverability. A lot of the common myths that we tell ourselves, I think I've been responsible for this over the years. You sort of get this like mythology in your head around email deliverability. I know everyone listening has done this before, and you think a certain keyword is triggering you to not land in the priority inbox, or there's all these various myths. So we're going to debunk them today and go through them. And if you have any other myths you want to pop in the chat as we go through, Travis will gladly debunk them for you. Or maybe not, maybe they're true. We'll also just give you some guidance on overall deliverability. And then Travis has created some amazing reporting templates to help you analyze and understand deliverability data better, because I think a lot of people struggle with just understanding where they need to improve and what's really going on across all their automation and the emails that they send. So let's get into it, and I will hand over to Travis. We're going to go full screen mode here and talk about a short history of email.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So with my 3 years of deliverability experience, I find that setting up the sort of baseline groundwork, getting everyone on the same page about certain terms and certain little history lessons about email really help understand sort of the direction that things are going, so that you can kind of comprehend how some of the things that I'll advise later really are going to align best with your marketing practices. So starting off, let's make sure that we're talking about the right terms here. When it comes to email deliverability, it actually sort of encompasses two main things that people think about around email. There's the delivery side, that's the sort of server to server, send, receive part that is included, but it also goes beyond that into whether it is put into the inbox or the spam folder. A lot of times the term deliverability rate is really in reference to sort of the percentage of emails that were placed in the inbox over the spam folder. Of course, most of the providers do not provide a deliverability rate. It's more theoretical. There are some sort of side apps that try to help provide something like that. But that just kind of helps give you a better context. When I talk about deliverability, I'm especially talking about both healthy delivery and going into the inbox more often than the spam folder. And so going even further than that, we really need to also understand how the term spam has evolved when it comes to email. We all understand that, malicious emails with phishing links or the Ethiopian prince trying to get the money from you, those things are definitely spam. They're not, those are definitely not desired and bad. But the next two terms are sort of less commonly accepted. Unsolicited, for the most part, I think a lot of people can agree that unsolicited is spam. There's a whole especially around cold email and sales, that really struggles with that because how do you contact someone? But at this time, unsolicited is definitely looped in with malicious when it comes to the term of spam. What is very under the radar, a lot more recent because of the progression of deliverability's evolution, is the term irrelevant. So irrelevancy in content to the recipient now equates to spam, and I'll talk through in a bit about all the other pieces as to why irrelevancy can now be equated in such a way. But first, what we really want to also make sure you understand, so that we know those kind of basic terms and how they're being perceived now. But it's also good to know the current environment that you're a part of. You, as a email marketer, you constantly are thinking about what you can do better, what you can do next, the newest copy, the newest content edge, but you're not really thinking about how the environment of email and all the other senders is going to be affecting how your filtering experience, whether you're going into the inbox or the spam folder, how that's going to roll out in the end. And it does, because what everyone else is doing, adds up. 2 to 300 billion emails are sent every day, based off of previous years' reportings, and it just seems to be growing. And among that, the mailbox providers are really having to work hard to sift through that. They have a lot of responsibility to protect their users, but also to not block their users from too much important information. So they're constantly having to wrestle and filter through in the best ways possible. And that's because 40 to 85% of emails, depending on the researching source, at the very least 40% are spam globally. And so that's crazy. That's a crazy amount of spam that's going out. And what's even crazier is that the largest single category of representation is marketing mail, is advertisement related. So that's where, and when you think about unsolicited, yes, but especially the irrelevant has really caused that to beefing up in some of those metrics in that way. And up on top of all of that, the growth of malicious activity is just continuing. Google reported that back in 2020 that over 100 million phishing emails a day were being blocked. That's just the ones being blocked, and we know from various security reports, especially around October, when security awareness kind of comes around, that things are still getting through. Phishing is still getting through. Phishing is still happening. It's costing billions of dollars, and so all of that comes through the inbox, and so they're having to work really, really hard. Um, and so, to really give you an understanding of where they've had the mailbox providers, the recipients, mailbox providers have had to work through this, here's a very, very basic. This is not a fully literal, but this is kind of how history of deliverability has evolved. Like, what's been the major focus? Over 20 years ago, there really wasn't any spam filters. There might be some sort of custom engineer blocks put into place, but for the most part, there was no general spam filters. Yahoo helped create the first sort of spam folder, but with that, is a really hard thing to keep up. The internet is still sort of a wild west in many ways, and so the first kind of attempts were the spam words. Those things are still talked about to this day, still thought about. But there has been a progression, because that isn't enough. Every marketer has some reason to offer something for free. And so the word free just can't cause filtering all the time. There's even, many conversations between people that include words like free and stuff like that. So it just doesn't work on its own. And so it had to be evolved out of. Then things like authentication, IP reputation, but with people being able to use multiple different providers to send email, the IP address, the address that does the actual technical delivery source there, wasn't enough, because you've got them being owned by various providers and essentially people coming in and just using for a time. And so there need to be better, which is where we are kind of today with domain reputation. Domain reputation helps really be able to keep track of a sender and their content. This is especially done with and been spearheaded by providers like Gmail and Yahoo. But has been the best and most accurate so far.
I think that's a really interesting point off the bat because, like, I think a lot of people still think solely about IP reputation, but knowing
Right.
that domain reputation is such a big factor, I think, is critically important as well. So,
Definitely, and that's one of the myths that I'll talk to in a second for sure, because it is something that I have had to have many conversations around. And together though, the thing is that while there is like an evolution beyond just those, individual things, the what is learned from each is still maintained, at least as far as what is accurate. It's just put into sort of a sifting funnel priorities sort of experience where domain reputation, when you look at like trying to deliver to Gmail, that represents, anywhere between 40 to sometimes 80% of B2C's like audience list. Domain reputation is their biggest thing that they focused on, and they have the resources for it, and that's why. But with domain reputation, there is just, you're able to really be finessed and pay attention to anything that's coming, especially when authentication is involved. They can know that this is who they say they are, then we can track them that way. IP reputation is still considered as a part of the experience, but it's definitely been brought down in its effect, especially around inbox delivery. At this point, it can affect different providers have different ratings, where like Yahoo and Microsoft definitely put a little more weight on IP reputation than Google does, for instance. But it's usually has a lot more effect with the actual delivery experience, whether the recipient server accepts it or not. Is a lot less nuanced. It's usually a lot more about big problems, or no, not very big problems, and just letting things through. So it has been kind of moved down, but it's still there. It's still considered in the rating algorithm, essentially. Authentication, where you can validate yourself as a sender, that is considered levels of spam content. It's really minimum, and I really can't accentuate that minimum. At most, links tend to be the most dangerous thing when it comes to content, just because they are dangerous. That's how phishing people, take advantage, the malicious actors and things like that. But if you're just, using general links, linking to your own website, then, for the most part, your your content is not going to be sort of spammy, or be the cause of those kinds of issues there. And so,
So
but all of those come together. Yeah.
so basically, if your domain reputation is great, and you send emails with links that just directly link to that domain or are coming through a subdomain of that domain, that would
Mhm.
make those links less malicious looking. They would be somewhat trusted. Is that accurate?
Right, that's a really good best practice that's brought up, that is often missed by people, is that the more you can align, the links in your content with just self-hosting with your own domain, the more you can control against any sort of like that content kinda getting in the way there. For the most part, it's really bad links if anything is gonna cause that, and that's like Bitly, that's like, link shorteners like Bitly, because they were abused. That's like Google Drive links in bulk mail, because that was abused. Stuff like that. Files, really, links especially. So, but for the most part, when you're doing yourself a real big service by trying to self-host whatever content you can in your emails, instead of linking out constantly.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I know it's something we've worked really hard on at Auto, is just making sure those links can be routed through subdomains and not these like crazy tracking links that providers have been using,
Mhm.
because I think that email services are really starting to crack down on those, and are fearful of them because of these reasons that you mentioned.
Right. That is a really cool feature of where we're able to allow customers to align that there, so that they don't even have to, they can really isolate their reputation and their focus in their Ordo account for sure. That's really cool.
All right, so let's jump into the deliverability myths, and we'll load up our first myth here. So spam words are my problem. I need to figure out what not to use in my copy to get in the inbox more. What is the truth?
That's right. Over 3 years of experience in deliverability, helping customers from tens of millions a day to hundreds a day, in volume, it's like I have only had a single experience, okay, with a word where I did verified testing and a word was the problem. And that situation was right after the January 6th in the US, where we had that sort of incident at Washington, D.C. a couple years ago on January 6th, which was often termed as a sort of coup of things. And the email that was sent was within a couple months after that, where a general was being interviewed, and they had almost a full interview in the email, which is not a fantastic idea. You definitely want to just create sort of a snapshot, a little tasty morsel, and then link off to a landing page. That's a good best practice. But beyond that, like just full and full of the word coup, 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 like just through the whole thing. And I did everything to figure out why this great sender was suddenly going into the spam folder, and because everything else as this never. And in that situation, I tested it, and it was that if I change it to a neutral term, then it was fine. But the amount the amount of times that that word was used, over 20 times, right after a very volatile time where a lot of the communications that happened around causing that had to do with online communications. And so there was a really strict kind of tightening there. But that's it. One time, one sender in 3 years, 3.5 years, and everything else, every single time that's been brought up outside of that, I've like every time never have failed to figure out that a change in sender behaviors, that there is something not best practice happening in either how the list is being organized, who's being sent things, what kind of frequency and relevant content is being sent. Every single time, otherwise, it has been something that could have been handled otherwise. So
don't put coup in your emails.
I mean, I wouldn't fill it with like 30 times for sure. I mean, that can get a
One
little
coup
weird.
is okay. Not multiple coups.
Wow.
We've probably been like ripped off the internet after saying that word.
Yeah.
Okay, myth 2, my platform is my deliverability problem.
Yes, I mean, how often I have heard that, it can also be kind of a red flag because I work in the compliance side of when we get sort of our new sales opportunities here at Ordo, new big accounts come in, and if I hear that phrase, though, sometimes it does make me a little worried because at the end of the day, like we just discussed, the IP reputation is really mostly what a platform provides for the most part. And even in situations like we do, even at Ordo, we provide custom IPs where you can have a dedicated IP for your account. But for the most part, when you're participating at a platform, by default, most platforms have a shared pool of IPs, that a shared pool of customers. Those are maintained and monitored, by their compliance teams and make sure that they're following best practice and keeping that reputation strong. And at the end of the day, like I said, IP reputation has really a lot more been relegated um, to straight up, if it's straight up bad, that it becomes undeliverable rather than it goes into the spam folder. There are providers, especially when it comes to B2B, sometimes they have to use various block lists that may or may not be accurate, and they might build their own sort of thing. B2B can be a little less nuanced that B2C gets to enjoy because, of course, Gmail has way more resources, and B2B is a little more spread out, a little more bespoke with each mailbox provider that the business use. But for the most part, the IP reputation just is either good, yes, no, good, bad. And so I have literally seen situations, even at my other companies and platforms I've worked for, where IP's reputation was low or even bad at a provider, but there were senders with following best practices that were still seeing 30% open rates, 40% open rates, because they had healthy send practices and a strong sender domain reputation. Whereas then the other ones that weren't having that, also the ones usually causing the drop in reputation that have to be kind of corrected with the compliance team, those are following their own desires outside of the best practices and just spamming people. And so I can even see, like, especially when you're talking about B2C with like Gmail, you know even being following best practices as a good sender, you can be on a not great IP and you can still see strong results. And so it's very not accurate, and it's a distraction to think that maybe your platform is a deliverability problem. The thing you need to look for when you're looking at a platform as far as deliverability is, how does it support you for your best deliverability? How does it set you up for success immediately? And how does it continue to work to encourage your strengthening of your skill sets, of the best practices around list maintenance and how to send it at a timely manner. Like those are the things that you should be considering, and less so whether the IP is suddenly making you go to the spam folder for sure.
So it seems like my takeaway so far is basically domain reputation is super important. And also with links, you really want to have, where possible, branded links or link to the domain. It seems like these are two things that are pretty important.
It's definitely sort of the cutting edge currently, the focus. Um, yeah.
Okay, let's go to myth 3. We need to send more emails to more people to get more sales. I think everyone watching is probably guilty of this to some extent.
I mean, I have worked personally with some really great marketers, and it's not always, necessarily their fault that they suddenly have to send to a list of email addresses that they've owned for the company had 10 years ago, and suddenly they decided they had to send to. There are, there's a top-down structure that happens sometimes where no matter what you try to say, they are required to email those people because of that idea. And I'm hoping that this slide presentation can kind of help those, where you can show this to someone and say, like, it is a shown myth for us to do this. But basically, when it comes to email, it's not like a billboard where you can just put it up in front of every person you possibly can and it doesn't matter. When it comes to email, there are consequences. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit when we get to the advisements. But basically, if people are not, engaging, your domain reputation is going to go down. And when your domain reputation goes down, people who were engaging will suddenly not even get it in their inbox so that they're not engaging. So it maybe the first email, if you're in a situation where you got a big sale coming up, a one-off email may not cause the end of the world for your marketing thing. But if your marketing strategy starts to include those emails on that there's no focus, every single email you send out is just bulk to everyone that you've ever even encountered or whispered an email address your way, those situations see rapid erosion, and it can lead to your newest sign up suddenly not even getting a confirmation, a welcome email into the inbox because so and so who hasn't even looked at a product of yours in over 5 years or 2 years, they're not engaging, and their lack of engagement is causing you to be filtered over here. It's a real drag on your inboxing experience. And what's crazy is that with email, especially marketing email, we got to be honest with ourselves that, there's a ton of marketing email going into everyone's inboxes. Like, no matter what, we all are having this experience together. And it's really easy to forget that as soon as, if you go into the spam folder for a month, you can, and then suddenly show up in the inbox. Some people might even perceive that as they might have forgotten, thought that they unsubscribed. Like I don't know, tangential. It's like very temporary in people's minds. They're not trying to keep up with whether did I unsubscribe or not? It's like being relevant, staying in their face, and when they're not engaging, honoring that and pulling back is what's going to help protect when it comes time when you need those important sales. It's usually those who have been interested, who are going to show interest, who have been a fan of your brand, who have been engaging with the communication, the comms that you're sending out there. And so honoring them and honoring others that don't want it, and keeping them out of anything that's not really relevant to them, that word irrelevant again, by removing them for anything not relevant, you're really protecting your sales, and you're going to really see a stronger ROI, and really begin to see those sort of activities where people are converting.
So summing that up, you're more saying that we should be sending highly personalized, targeted emails that are somewhat custom to that audience, and just not blasting out the same message to the same audience infinite times to try and drive sales. Is that what I should take away from this?
Yeah, sorry, that was a very, very long kind of thing. As you can tell, I've had to wrestle that conversation many times. So I'm hitting all of the sort of kickbacks. But essentially, yes, it all comes down to relevancy, and it's going to keep pushing towards relevancy with Web3 coming out. The whole sort of texture of the internet and the way we engage with businesses and stuff is going to hyper personalized, hyper localized, and email is going to continue to go in that direction in order to maintain that relevancy, to keep from getting losing engagement, essentially. Yeah.
All right, let's go to myth 4. They signed up, so they obviously want to hear from us, don't
This
they?
one is it's like, yeah, I loved writing that one because I knew everyone would be like, what? There's kind of two pieces here. There's the illegitimate signups, the outright illegitimate signups, and there's the legitimate ones that still need to be questioned here. When it comes to illegitimate, what we're talking about is that there are abuse vectors that are identified as spam bots, sign up bots, things like that. They basically scour the internet and look for a sign up form that doesn't have some form of captcha on it. That's where that came from, is people just finding them and either filling them out so that they just fill up that person's sort of audience with fake stuff that can cause delivery reputation issues for bounces and stuff like that, or they use real addresses, and they can do things like put a link, a spam link, into the first name field and have your welcome email say welcome first name, actually say welcome, go to the spam link, essentially, to people, and they're basically hacking onto your setup and stuff like that. So there's the illegitimate side that needs protection, for you to verify. That's where the captcha comes in. That's a best practice now. If you don't have a captcha, you're really risking some opportune moment for your reputation to be struck by external actions. But also confirmed opt-in can help with that, to help validate, make sure that you're getting engaged real recipients there. So that's on the illegitimate side. On the legitimate sign up, so these are organic. These are people actually filling out the form. There is situations where it's not actually obvious that they want to hear from you, because how often is gated content or a giveaway used without really sort of outlining that? It almost has become subliminal to all of us that we know now that if I give my email address, even for this thing over here on the left hand side, for this one little thing, I'm going to get everything. That's kind of become the common practice among marketers in general, because that feeling of needing to get that in front of everybody, and that affects your domain reputation, because someone trying to get this giveaway or this gated content that they'll get immediately when they fill out this form, that doesn't mean that they want an email. And so I'm not saying that you just can't completely have things like that, but it's just that there needs to be sort of a step-by-step process where people are able to explicitly consent to the various streams of traffic that you're going to be sending their way. That is super important in maintaining that relevancy for engagement.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into the myth around the debate, sorry, around gated and ungated right now. We could go all day. But it does seem like having some content available, getting people to browse and getting them to then explicitly opt in is the way to, address that over time. Send them the content and then consider the factors of, can you continue this relationship, or do they actually want to hear more
Right.
from you?
And I
Uh,
mean, you can even set it up to where you follow it up with an email that gives them options that they can click on, and then you can have them added from there. Like, you can still do it, but it's that transparency and the explicit click that we're really missing in most cases, for sure.
Okay, so let's go to myth 5. If I keep doing what I'm doing, everything will be fine. I feel like this could be a myth of situations in life as well as email, but yeah.
Oh, I wish we all could just chill out with where we are and be good with it and everything work fine around us. But, that's not the case, like you said, for everything. And the other way to say this that I actually have heard so much was, I haven't made any changes. Why am I suddenly going to the spam folder? And, in a lot of cases, like, that's why, that can be the answer. And so it's really, really important to be paying attention to the growth vector of the industry, the evolution of things, and really honor your recipients, by growing and listening to what they have to say, by engaging or not engaging with various content. Um, yeah.
So, how do people keep up if they want to keep up? Are you going to start a newsletter like Travis Tips? Should we just do this live and get you to commit so that people can stay up to date? Is it something that how as a marketer, how do you stay up to date?
Right. Trying to find, I think the hardest thing is making sure that you're listening to the right voices. Um, that's why as soon as I started, like 9 months ago with Orta, one of my big focuses, even when I was interviewing, was talking about how I want to build all of these resources because I understand that. So we have been working really hard on. We've got an ebook that this year that really is full of 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 this kind of information, and I am regularly working with the marketing team to continue to put out blog posts. So there's, at least for those who have encountered me through this webinar or through past engagements, the I'm going to continue to feed the information as I'm part of the industry. There are some like nonprofits like MOG that it works, that they are the anti-abuse organization, one of the main ones around stuff like that, and they're one of the few that I would definitely recommend. If people want to kind of keep communications and keep looking to see what sort of white papers they put out, they're oftentimes even connecting with some more technical stuff, but they do also do best practices white papers as well. Yeah, it's really hard, but at least maybe setting up a healthy practice of checking like the Ordo blog, or checking with that sort of those anti-abuse organizations like MOG once a month, just to, as a part of your marketing growth research strategy, can help you maintain and keep listening to the right voices, because there are a lot saying a lot of things that are not.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on. 5 tips to improve your email deliverability. I think this is some great content for everyone to take away.
Cool. Yeah. So the first thing is to keep an eye on the positive and negative engagement trends. So you're really going to look for trends, and I know that sounds like a no-brainer when you say it that way. But what's important is to realize that a recipient's activity is what determines your domain reputation. When I was talking about that before, this is what I was talking about was leading to that. Not just the single recipient's activities, but altogether they build an aggregate that defines whether you are a healthy, strong sender worth the inbox or not. What's interesting to note is how strong a reply to an email is. That is a very clear signal that it is desired. The middle two, the clicks and unsubscribes being in gold, that's meant to look like a neutral, because that's what providers say, that they don't assign any sort of value based off of that, or any sort of tracking related to that. But what's really interesting, obviously, most everyone knows that market spam is a really bad signal, and it doesn't take a lot of those actually to work against you. But the big thing that most marketers are dealing with is that unopens, that pink one, almost to the last, to the left or right there, and those build up. Those are the things that are dragging down most marketers' strategies and the work that they're doing, and why they can see open rates dropping. And so paying attention to the opens versus unopens, and looking for those trends is really important, especially when we're talking about the proportions. You really want to have strong proportions where if you have a lot more of negative engagements, which those unopens count for, on a regular basis, then you're going to be seeing spam folder experience constantly. But when you do the adverse, when you're working on maintaining a list that is only sending relevant content to relevant recipients, and working hard to honor lack of engagements by removing them from unnecessary content, you are protecting that proportion, and that is going to create that stronger inboxing experience.
So should you be considering sending emails that truly get people to reply? Is that one technique of just boosting that domain's reputation?
That if you can handle that, that's great. I've definitely seen situations where people marketers have had to utilize that to help strengthen things there. For the most part, an open is solid enough. Um, but that reply to, you know, it's also not utilized a lot by marketers because they're sending bulk. I mean, it's hard to handle human reply to thousands, let alone millions or whatever. And so, whether that's a part of your marketing strategy, if you can handle that, and having really really healthy, strong deliverability, email deliverability in that to that level, then definitely that could be a part of your strategy. If you're a general marketer, I won't say that you need to sweat it necessarily. Just having regular strong proportion of those opens really helps for sure.
So you're not suggesting people should take a photo of like a jar with jelly beans in it and say like reply with your guess. It might actually
I
work. I
mean,
might try that as an experiment and
a
post the
cheat.
results. I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that people it's even if you're gonna do a reply to campaign, like, my god, it definitely still needs to be relevant, make you want to. I mean, I guess some people's curiosity will get them to wonder really how many is in that jar. But, what what it comes down to at the end of the day to maintain those proportions is regular list cleaning schedules. You know, reevaluating the engagement of your list every quarter is a really really healthy thing to do. At the very least, there needs to be a common practice of every once a year at least, but I would say every quarter would be ideal. The point of this is not just because part of sort of sunset list cleaning policies now is that anything over 12 months since engagement, so a subscriber that's been receiving emails for over a year and not engaged, need to be removed from the main lists and discontinued sending to. And the reason is that like they're dragging things down. Old addresses can also become utilized by block lists for spam traps and various things like that. But also, this practice is not meant to just focus on that. It's because your most ideal time to win back a possible lead, possible customer, is within 3 months of their last engagement. It's still relevant. You're still somewhat able to be on their mind in that time frame. And so, doing that every 3 months, having things set up to do that even for you, something that like Ordo can do. We have that. Automations of that type for that, that is really just strengthening your marketing strategies and your ROI around that. And it's a very easy way to do that with automated win back campaigns and an automated sunset policy when it's just very very obvious. I mean, a year of emails, that could be anywhere between 12 emails to like, oh man, I've been seeing some senders, they send, an email a week, an email a day. I mean, how much does that build up to in a year? At that point, it's obvious. And so you're just doing yourself a service by cleaning things up as well as re-engaging early. Um,
So it does seem like as marketers, it would be great if we put in our calendars a, a something to remind us every 3 months, like, hey, let's do a list cleanup. Let's go and evaluate this. Because I think a lot of times, as you said earlier, you just get distracted, really busy, and then one day, all of a sudden, deliverability drops or open rate drops or some of these various measures drops, and you're like, hang
mhm.
on, what happened? And then it's all of a sudden a crisis. But it just good maintenance, it sounds like, is really important to get into.
Yeah, definitely worth putting on your calendar for your team to reapproach and keep practice in. But also, as you're looking at your platforms for how they support your deliverability, this is something that I've been working with the team. We've got like the new templates gallery, and one of the things that I've been working on is a very basic that you're seeing a screenshot of a very basic 12-month sunset journey where it attempts a preference update email. Where at that point, if no one engages at all, it just automatically unsubscribes them from emails. Now, this is a very strict, basic thing. I definitely just like to have at least that foundation available, and it'll be editable once we have this live as one of our templates. But on top of that, while we could say, you could set a schedule, you can also make sure you're utilizing tools like Ordo that have those automation possibilities. I'm working on creating other sorts of supportive maintenance level sort of playbooks and journeys that will try to set you up to where you can just basically update content. And when a subscriber starts to slip, starts to churn, starts to lose interest, it will know to refresh and check on them on its own, and try to win them back based off of whatever is relevant from your products to them. So that's something I'm definitely working down. We do already have some templates, and utilizing those is part of this. Advisements and suggestions here, specifically, there's the deliverability dashboard that I built, where this helps you quickly see on a 30-day level the trends around your subscribers and where you're seeing rises and falls. That's what's really important when analyzing your success there.
Travis, are you going to drop in that it's the #1 most used template in the template store?
I actually didn't realize that it was still that. That's amazing.
It's very popular, yeah.
It's really cool. I'm glad that I could put that together with the templates team. And then looking at things, at seeing where's your biggest gap, where you're I built this template of a report around how old it's been, or the proportion of the age since last engagement for subscribers, so you can really see, like, where do you sit, where's the big gap, where are people have fallen away, and where are they getting to, so that you can really understand these portions of your audience and maybe even target them based off of where they are in their interest.
Yeah, this is a great report, I think, to look at and guide campaigns off for sure.
Yep. I think the next report I have is a email summary by week. That one's a really great one to really give sort of a more aggregated but a continued volume level comparison of your traffic. And then the final one I have listed here is the email engagement funnel. This funnel works from every email that you sent down to how many people have opened over that time period, to how many people clicked, to how many people, as you can easily do in Ordo, you can show conversions and purchases, and actually connect the purchase with the marketing campaigns, which is pretty cool. And at the end here, trusting the process, not cutting corners, is really, really important. And that's not just a little spiel thing to cover up, fill a hole here that we need. No, there's really two big things when it comes to approaching and improving your deliverability and essentially your ROI around your email marketing. That is maintaining strong list practices via strong list health and re-engaging the slowly churning subscribers, to control to content adjustments, not the spam worry, but focusing on decreasing burnout by limiting what content goes to which recipients, and focusing on more personalized engagements that increase higher engagements. All of those sort of things come together to really create that strong email deliverability. And so here's the quick recap. The 5 kind of tips that I really want to focus on: that keep an eye on the positive and negative engagement trends. Use those trends and focus on the idea of the proportions to give yourself an understanding of where you're sitting and where improvements lie. You can create regular list cleaning schedules, whether you do that on your calendar or you use an automated tool like Ordo. Utilizing things that I talked about with those Ordo's templates to see those trends very easily in whatever platform you're using, and then not cutting corners when you're looking at your practices, your list practices, your content practices, to make sure you're maintaining a high level of engagement.
Brilliant. I've certainly taken a lot away from today, and I hope everyone watching has as well. We could pick Travis's brain all day. We are coming up against the time here, so I might try and take a question, but I did want to let you know that if you've enjoyed today's presentation and you want to receive follow-up information directly from Travis, we'll send you this presentation, a link to these email deliverability templates. They can also be found on auto.com/templates. And we'll send you a link to the replay of this session if maybe you tuned in halfway through and you're interested in watching the full thing. So you can go over to auto.com/email-deliverability-toolkit. Wow, we came up with a complex URL there for this, but that's the URL. So you can go over there and you'll get all of that great stuff. And maybe at some point I can convince Travis to actually send out some tips and tricks and new information in order to keep you as up to date as possible. So, Travis, that was so great. We're up against time now, so I'm going to end on time because I know many people are going to want to get back to what they're doing with their day wherever they are. So, thanks for all the great content. Thanks to everyone for tuning in and watching this today, wherever you're tuning in from. And we hope to bring more content like this to you again very soon. Thanks again for watching.